Welcome, folks. You guessed it. We're here live at Viva Fresh Expo 2026 in beautiful San Antonio, Texas. I am joined by my, can I say infamous?
You absolutely can say infamous.
Infamous co-host, Craig Slate. And we're also being joined from FutureBridge, Mr. Richard Meyer and Sabrina DeLay. How are y'all this morning?
Always a pleasure to be back with you guys, even with that coat there.
We paid him to say that.
Yeah. Good morning, guys.
Yeah,
Thanks for
good morning.
joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for being first off as well and helping us test the waters here a little bit. We do have a little different setup than we usually do, so kind of bold being out here in the middle of the show floor with a lot of, we're hoping we don't have anything thrown at us or too many hecklers today, I guess. But, come happy hour, it might...
We might get a little dicey.
Yeah, it might get a little Western, as some folks say around here.
There you go. Yeah.
Well, in all seriousness, we always love talking to you.
Always.
You give us a wealth of information. We've had a couple conversations, I think, here or in Dallas one year, in D.C.
Yep.
We're planning on being D.C. again this year, so hopefully we can get together again.
You know it.
So both of you, for those that obviously are listening, some will have been here and some weren't, but y'all hosted a panel yesterday.
That's right.
I guess let's start off by clearing the air. What's Consumomics?
All right.
Can you give us that in a nutshell? And then maybe some of the highlights from yesterday. Obviously, again, for those that weren't able to join, I actually wasn't either. Sounds super interesting, but would like to share it with our audience.
Sure. Sabrina, you want to start off and explain a little bit about what Consumomics is and what we're trying to accomplish with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll try to give it to you in a nutshell, because if I let Rich do it, he's going to give you the PhD dissertation. Honestly, the book is like 1,200 pages.
Oh, wow.
It's incredible.
Consumomics is a book.
Consumomics is a book. It's the brainchild of Richard. He's been working on this for over 30 years. It's come from all of his years of experience across industries. And it's only now through large language models that we've been able to mathematically sort of come up with a framework to engineer consumer demand. So the basis behind it is something really very simple. So it's this concept that there are 4 main drivers and then 1 regulatory gene that sort of supports where we can take consumer demand. And then we look at it sort of like an intelligence agency through signals. So that's where large language models comes in and really helps us. So before, we just didn't have a way to bring in all those signals in a way that was accessible. But now we're looking at the product, the channel, and Rich, help me out here.
The occasion.
The occasion.
Right. The occasion, the product, the channel, the occasion, and product, channel, occasion, and of course the consumer genome. So basically, how do we phenotype, as if you were a seed, who you are and what your behavioral pattern is, and then we're able to re-engineer that behavioral pattern. We were able to score over 100,000 case studies so far. And because of the power of large language models, right? And so we're able to use valuation science to essentially say, if you have this innovation, if you have this merchandising, if you have this product launch, if you have this, you define what this is.
Mm-hmm.
We can create with 60 to 70% directional accuracy what the outcome will be and a set of KPIs. Now, if you're saying, well, wait a minute, I already have my Nielsen IQ data.
So outcome will be with the consumer. Is that what when you say outcome? No. What is the outcome?
Oh, the outcome's the consumer behavior. The outcome
So the
are the
predictability.
KPIs. Right. The outcome is what it is worth to the retailer. The outcome is what it is worth to the grower, shipper, distributor.
Gotcha.
So we can model all of the major KPIs that you would have on a CEO dashboard with 60 to 70% directional accuracy, purely public data, in a fraction of the time it would have for you to write the query to just ask Nielsen IQ to give you the answer 12 to 16 weeks later.
I'll give you just a quick little insight. We met somebody last night at the little social, and just overnight, we've been able to kind of run a Consumomics first pass, and we've got speaking points to bring to that CEO about how, where, and what is going to really change for them.
So obviously the panel was, I think 30 minutes. What was discussed was the book in general, or the other work that y'all do at FutureBridge?
No. So what we did was we actually went and proved that there is a 4.5 to about an $8.6 billion latent demand opportunity in produce that is almost 100% tied to how we poorly execute the merchandising. So we showed a number of examples, how you would obtain it, where that comes from, which consumer genotypes are most impacted, which products have the best way, and then mapped out a Vision 2030 game plan for it. And on top of that, wrote about 100-page white paper to fully show exactly how Viva Fresh could lead the industry with its members in obtaining this benefit for the retailer as well as for their members. Noting that if the retailer wins in produce, in other words, if they increase the consumer behavioral pattern, that benefits, they can take that like dominoes around the entirety of the trip at the retail grocer. And Sabrina, you want to kind of comment a little bit more on what we talked about?
Sure. So kind of one of the things that we brought into focus is why now? So there's 3 converging forces that we presented, which are, there's a GLP-1 user, and that's an emerging phenotype for what we're modeling. And we're saying there's a ton of untapped potential. It's 1.4 billion on the table right now. Then we have our convenience imperative. So we're looking at how time crunched we are in our society and what the premium is that people are willing to pay for that convenience factor. And it's somewhere between 40 to 65% for a savings of 20 minutes. And then lastly, we have
40 to 65% over conventional.
Yep, over the commodity bulk.
Okay.
And then we've got our trust renaissance. And this is something that I think we were surprised with as we built the Consumomics model, is we kept looking at, in all of the post-mortem case studies, what's happening when we had like a food safety issue? Why is there this sudden crash? It's not, we couldn't find it in any of the other behaviors, and it was because trust is a regulator. It's a multiplier of what's happening. It's not an add-on to the behavior.
So when you say in other instances, you mean non-food commodities?
No.
No?
We mean 100,000 food launch post-mortem case studies.
Okay.
Yep. So in that trust revolution, we're finding this is where the messaging, the merchandising, the storytelling really can help capture this latent demand that's available for this industry.
Are you guys ready for a first hand grenade? Can I throw a first hand grenade out there? Start in the first 5 minutes.
Go.
Throw a hand grenade. Okay. Here's one of the things that we know.
It's going to be warm and fuzzy. Am I going to feel warm?
Oh, you're going to feel really warm and fuzzy about this because it's costing us a lot of money, literally, and it's costing us a lot of money in opportunity. So produce promotions do not work. You're like, wait a minute, they work all the time. No, they don't. I can mathematically model that you're better off not doing them. Why? All right, very simple reason. You have rented volume. You have not built equity in the long-term value of a consumer. So we talk about, well, how do you get all this money that Sabrina is talking about, right? Well, very simple. All biological creatures, whether it's a plant, whether it's your dog, or whether it's you or your child, behave similarly. We have to give exposure. Exposure leads to conditioning. Conditioning leads to adoption. But what do we do constantly? We get rid of the conditioning side, we get rid of the adoption side because we decide we're going to just start mixing things up and changing things all of a sudden in produce. So no fast-moving consumer good in grocery, right? Center aisle would have $1 billion power brand and do what produce does in merchandising.
From a promotion standpoint.
From anything, from the way in which they message, the number of times we turn, what products are being putting things on promotion, etc. What we're doing is we keep chopping up the experience of building what we call automaticity or ritual behavior. Go ahead.
I've got a question around. So you know that I understand from a consumer package and their consistency and all that, but the challenge for me, what I would say is the execution side, given the fact that so much is variable in the produce. So how do you deal with the fact that the product either is not available in large enough quantities to cover the need, so therefore it's out. Carrots, 2 weeks ago, I was at a grocery store and there were virtually no carrots available. Or the quality.
Table grapes, right?
Quality goes bad. It's not as ideal as it was last time. You don't have the flavor profile. There's a multitude of things that fresh produce faces that kind of would, even though you identify what could help increase the sales, I'm not sure you can consistently execute against it. So how do you, I guess, recommend or advise in that space?
Well, we have 5 case studies where unintentionally 5 major retailers did execute, but executed it only halfway.
Okay.
Right? That's 1. 2, we agree that there is great variability in it. There's great variability in a lot of areas in a grocery store. The fish counter can be highly variable as well. But variability does not change the way consumers behave. And so what we're wanting to do is you can't get rid of the variability of, if you're long on a product, you're going to discount it to move it.
Right.
If the shelf date's kind of coming up, you're going to move it. If the freshness is not there, you're going to move it, right? But you don't want to add more variability to the equation, nor do you want to get rid of some of the consumer demand. So we always think that price or brand drives produce, but it's really what we call the infrastructure side of consumer demand. And to explain that, I'm going to have Sabrina explain what the mathematical model is and why it's PECA, P plus E plus C plus A, added together times V. And I'm going to have her explain to the audience quickly. We can get you, the white paper you can download, etc. But explain why the real win in produce is winning on V, A, and C. And that's not what promotions do. That's the key.
Thanks, Rich. I love being put on the spot like
There you
this.
go.
Yep. So Rich already mentioned our equation. We call it PECA-V. P, E, C, and A are drivers that get added together. P is provisioning. So you want to think about price, but it's really beyond that. It's price sensitivity and value creation. And then we have E, which is emotion. And this is really important. It's about identity, how you connect back to that consumer, where you're picking up on pleasure, their values alignment. All of that sits in that E. Then you have C, which is convenience, super important in produce. It's about reducing friction. So you want to think about, where am I adding value to this consumer's experience, and then time savings. And then we have our A, which is automaticity. This often gets forgotten. And this is where we're building ritual behavior. And that behavior can be something where it's seasonal. We saw this in the case study with HEB. They have like first cherries of summer. And that's something they're always putting forward. And so people have this automatic reaction to it. I need to pick up cherries and put them in the cart. And then they do the same thing. Heirloom tomato season.
Like
Patch
FOMO.
chili peppers. Yeah. So it's this automaticity that comes into the basket. So that's an excellent use of that. And then lastly, that V, that regulator gene, that's our validity or trust. And it's the multiplier. So that's how we break it down. We look at each of those individual genes and say, what's at play in any given state, and which of those genes can we alter to achieve the desired consumer behavior that we're looking for.
So what we're saying to the produce industry is it's the infrastructure side that matters most, right? V is a multiplier. So if I increase it slightly, I get more behavioral demand in all the KPIs, whether that's lift, repeat behavior, margin, reduction in trade promotion cost, etc. And then the automaticity and the convenience really are the latent potential that we see in produce right now, because the market is playing based on price and based on trying to build a brand.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's a
being
lot.
unpacked.
Yeah.
What would you say in a nutshell is the action? You mentioned Texas Produce, the association, some companies, retailers, etc. So what is the call to action? What's your best case scenario, or how do you engage that as a value proposition, I suppose?
Sure. So we laid out a hypothesis for exactly how you would go about getting this. And in order to do that, let me have Sabrina walk you through kind of what those end values were that we were going to do. And then from there, go back and say, well, there were 3 or 4 actions that we recommended, strategic actions that we recommended, and where those are, and which consumers those are going to hit, and at what dollar figure. So
Okay.
we can take it all the way from the retailer side to the national side to the consumer side, and give you what to do and what those numbers mean. Sabrina?
Yeah, so we had in our presentation 5 shifts that we were calling on the industry to make. This was our call to action. So our first one was from commodity to genomes. So we're really challenging the audience to really take on what we're calling behavioral phenotyping and replace those demographic segmentations. So what we're saying is your consumer is not just a millennial with X amount of income who lives in a specific geography. Each of those genes, right, the P, the E, the C, and the A, is defining that person.
Right.
And that's more important than the demographics. So start to think about that and
So
do what
like
we
our
call
GLP-1 user, right? Our GLP-1 user, $1.4 billion opportunity right there,
Right.
okay? But we're not meeting their needs, and we can talk specifically. The convenience optimizer, $2.2 billion of opportunity. You've got 8 linear feet. We should say, what happens if we move from about 5% of the linear feet in the grocery store to 15% value add? Exactly what happens. We show that captures that kind of $2 to $2.2 billion opportunity.
And in fact, that was our second call to action, was moving from bulk to bundle. So really focusing on where value add expands from a current state. So in the way that you're retailing, how do you set that up? Really call out that space, increase linear footage, and you'll see revenue go up. We predict from 10 to 15% to 25 to 35%.
Right. So think about this. Think about right now, everyone is treated the same within the produce category, right? We treat the product differently. We treat the consumer the same. We're saying that's backwards. You want to treat the different consumer types as if they have their own micro experiences within there. So the GLP-1 user has a completely different need in a small section. The one that is time crunched, going in, getting out, and wanting to be in and out of that grocery store in less than 20 minutes has a completely different experience. So moving from product-based to genome-based has a significant lift that's been proven over time in other categories.
Now, did I understand you to say, you said something, you didn't say packaging, but bundled, you called it bundled. Are you referring to you think the packaging of commodity produce is better?
We're saying there's opportunity on the table if you give more space to those people who are already seeking either packages that could be nutrient dense, so meal kits, things
Gotcha.
like that, or it could be time saving, right? Already pre-cut, pre-washed, etc. Rich, anything you want to add?
Yeah, so there's the problem is in the framing of how you frame the question, with all due respect.
That's fine. Yeah.
Right? So the issue is really very simple. We think in terms of packaging. We think in terms of product. We are a supply driven, forward looking versus a consumer. How do I meet that experience looking section of the retail grocery store? So the real answer would be this. It would be, what is the experience that the GLP or the convenience optimizer needs that requires this to be in packaging, requires it to be cut, requires it to be in packaging, requires it to be grab and go, just like the rotisserie chicken is, right?
Yeah.
Experience backwards, not product forward.
Okay.
Yeah, so our third call to action was from opaque to transparent. So really looking at where you can add traceability to the items, making that a standard. So that really helps in the storytelling. It's going to increase your V with trust and also create that emotional attachment.
So think about it this way. You've got we've got what I'll call kind of historic trust, and we want to move to modern trust. Now, that's no different than a diet that says, well, watch your calories, and one that says, well, here are your macros. Here we're going to measure, right? We're going to measure what you intake. We're going to have watch to check what your glucose. We're going to have a watch to check how many steps you have. We're going to matrix measure it. We call that modern trust. So if you think about it in terms of produce, you have a lot of legacy brands that have built trust, but they've built trust in this kind of vague, how does the consumer actually know that you should be trustworthy, other than I kind of have this feeling that you're trustworthy. Well, we're saying that modern trust, which is matrix measurable, is infinitely more valuable to the modern consumer than legacy trust. And that's where a lot of these brands can overtake some of the ones that have kind of a legacy. You just kind of trust us because,
we are
our
who we
label.
are.
So just for the audience, I'll just throw out the last two. They can pick up the rest of the information in the white paper, which is available on Viva Fresh and FutureBridge's website. But they are from static to dynamic pricing, and then looking from isolated to omni-channel. So really thinking about digital storytelling.
Gotcha. Well, I want to, so on the consumer, but Richard has the global knowledge. And, we talked about the Ukraine war before and
That's right.
the effect. There's a few other things that's happened since the Ukraine war, which is still going on. The straits opened up this week, supposedly, for a period of time, but there's still got to be some effects. So just real quick, what do you think, and how's that going to, obviously transportation, fertilizers, there's a lot of different things.
So like anything, you book your fertilizer by geographic region, right?
Mm-hmm.
So American Farm Bureau, trying to do these numbers, and the picture off of the top of my head.
Yeah.
It's about 67% was already pre-booked in the Midwest, and then the West and South traditionally are, in West was 16%, I want to say, and that, of course, is where produce is, and then in the South, right, which was in the 20s.
Yeah.
So there's a fair bit of exposure, but there's exposure all the way around. So I would say, the diesel price is really what's going to hit home the fastest, especially in fresh produce.
Yeah.
We got to move it, we got to cool it, and all of that takes energy.
Yeah.
Right? And so when energy prices go, that really starts to erode margin at a time in which there's all kinds of regulatory restrictions. The variable cost of produce often is exceeding what the market price will be in most categories, not all. But we've taken a bad situation and made it terrible. Now, how long is that going to last? Everyone likes to think that the minute the strait opens, it's over. Well, no, this could be a 6 or 8 month lag period from that time. So I think you've got producers who were in financial distress. Some were in special assets. A lot of them were planning on having some very difficult conversations with their lenders on operating capital. And now this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would expect a significant spike in bankruptcies this year.
In the farming, on the
No matter-
farming side.
No matter, exactly, no matter what happens. Now, when the farming side goes, well, that ripples through the entire supply chain side of the equation.
Yeah.
And if I were a retail grocer, right now, I would want to absolutely secure my supply chain, absolutely understand and monitor and measure, is that product going to be available? Is that product taking the same steps that it did historically? And you can do that through satellite imagery and things on that line. Are they pruning? Are they doing all of the different steps that are going to give me the predictable quantity and quality that I'm looking for? Because overnight, what's happening to the growers could change the consistency of the experience in your retail produce section. And you can prevent that being proactive.
Makes
Well,
sense.
That's contingencies as well, right? Obviously, as far as product
Absolutely.
availability, they're super important.
Absolutely.
Our time has flown by as usual. So thank y'all for joining us.
Of course.
One last plug for y'all. The name of the book is, again,
Consumomics.
and it's available anywhere. Bestsellers are sold, I'm assuming.
It's coming. It's coming.
It's
so
coming.
so the white paper is on Fresh Produce is
Okay.
available now.
Okay.
The book is being launched, but we wanted to launch the white paper on Fresh first.
Okay.
So you got a couple of weeks or about a month for the book, but the white paper with Viva Fresh is out now, both on FutureBridge's website as well as on Viva Fresh's. That link goes live on Monday.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure to pick one up, or I'll maybe pick you one up too.
Yeah, no,
And we can get them autographed in DC.
I will read
later
it.
this year.
I can assure you I will.
Oh, I
read
know
it.
you will. All right. Richard, Sabrina, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Thanks for being here in San Antonio today for Viva Fresh, or this week for Viva. And I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Makes sense. Bye.